Tony Gonzales, and we got a great tour of Goodfellow Air Force Base. And you know, when you see a base like this and see the roles that it plays in not only the community here in San Angelo, but training people all around the country on military bases all around to be able to put out fires, to be able to deal with the challenges that are faced on Air Force bases. Of course, August knows a lot about it. He traveled the world protecting our country and fighting for our freedoms at many bases all around the world, but he brings that experience through his leadership here to Congress. And he's been a leader in Congress on many issues, clearly on foreign affairs. We also work a lot on the challenges with the border, and I know the mayor understands this well too. Tony Gonzales represents a large border district. We know the national security threat that an open border faces, and every town in America right now is a border town because of the porous open border and the failed policies that have gotten us to this point, where we have thousands of people a day coming across our southern border. Clearly it's a concern here, and August brings that concern to Congress, but it's also led to drugs like fentanyl being distributed through the border all across the country. Last year we lost over 100,000 young Americans to drug overdoses tied to fentanyl, which primarily is coming across our southern border. So those are all real important issues that we need to address. But being here on Goodfellow, to see these men and women who serve our country, who train other people around the nation who serve on military bases, and then talking about that community involvement. And I know the mayor's been so good at making sure the community is stepping up to have this great relationship and this partnership. And I know they're getting ready to open a kindergarten on the base here to help those service members who have families to be able to raise a family and serve the country at the same time. So a lot of really good things happening here at Goodfellow Air Force Base. I appreciate the hospitality and just seeing and learning more about what's done here and helping this base stay stable and grow so that they can continue to meet the mission of our nation and our friends all around the world. In fact, training people not only here in America, but training service members from other countries around the world. And we even got to meet some of those heroes too today. So it was a treat. Somebody else who I enjoy serving with, a fairly new member of Congress, but in a little over a year, he's seen a lot and been a great leader, especially dealing with the border issues, is Tony Gonzales.
I'm excited to be back in San Angelo. You know, I graduated out of Goodfellow Base in 2005, and I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to Representative Pfluger. I mean, this man has been a leader from day one, and you know, not only did he serve his country in the Air Force, but he constantly pushes other members to do our jobs, right? It's not every day that you see the whip come down to Goodfellow Air Force Base. It's a big deal. There's a lot of things this man could be doing, but he's here. Why are we here? We're here because of August, and we're here because we care. The men and women that serve on this base are doing real work. They're protecting us, they're keeping us safe. I also want to thank August for his leadership on the border. I mean, he just got back from Del Rio. He's been there several times, not even his district. And he goes out there and he leads. Because just like Whip said, every city in America is a border city, including San Angelo. I mean, San Angelo knows it more than anyone. I mean, the chaos that is happening on the border impacts us all. Back to Goodfellow Air Force Base. The men and women that are on here, that are being trained, that are doing the work, they need all of our support, right? It's discouraging to see, you know, some of the housing that hasn't been where it needs to be, but I know that's going to change. I know that's going to change because you have an amazing representative in August Pfluger, and it's just the beginning. It's all very exciting. Just the beginning of what's to come. I'm grateful for it, grateful to be here, and I'm excited to be back in San Angelo. My oldest niece goes to Angelo State, so there's so many connections here, and with that, I'll go ahead and turn it back over to August.
It's pretty neat to have a graduate from Goodfellow that now serves in Congress that understands so well what we do and will help make those, I think, make those points to advocate for the resources. So Tony, thank you. Your perspective and your leadership have been tremendous. But I also want to make the point that none of this happens without a partnership. And that partnership with local community leaders, with civic leaders who give of their own time to advocate for Goodfellow, and also to the local elected officials who represent a base that trains 14,000 airmen, soldiers, sailors, Marines, and Guardians every single year. What we just learned inside the gate of Goodfellow Air Force Base does not happen without tremendous leadership. And I'd like to also introduce a tremendous leader, somebody who cares about this community, who has taken us through our own crises here with weather events, and has done so with grace and leadership that is unmatched. So I'd like to turn it over to Mayor Brenda Gunter, who is doing a phenomenal job here in St. Angelo.
What a great moment when we have people spending time with us here in San Angelo, and us having the opportunity to showcase what a great city this city is. I believe that the greatest asset we have in this city is the citizens who believe in Goodfellow Air Force Base, who support our soldiers, our sailors, our airmen. We have a community that takes pride in saying this Air Force Base is one with the city. They're not two separate things, they're one. And that makes us a strong community. There are so many people who come here and are assigned Goodfellow Air Force Base who want to come back again because of the way this community treats its soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Coast Guard. So I thank each of you here because you help us get that story out, the pride that we take, the love that we have, and knowing that we live in a community that will fight hard to protect our soldiers, that will protect all of our freedoms, and that's a rare thing because we get to feel it one-on-one here. I love the fact that we, the city of San Angelo, understands the needs of this base, and we will fight hard to ensure that the needs of this base are addressed at the highest level that we can do in city management, and that's housing, and that's the top priority for us. Thank you for being here. Glad to have you here, and thank you all for joining us in this city.
We have time for one or two questions if there are any.
John Tuff, San Angelo Standard Times. This is for Mr. Scalise and Mr. Gonzales. What about today's tour perhaps impressed you the most or left the biggest impression on you today?
Well, first you see that people from all around the country come to train for firefighting and then go back to military bases to keep those bases safe. But to see service members from other countries, and there were probably about 7 other countries represented here today, where they're coming here and maybe for 60 days at a time to learn here in San Angelo how to do the best fire training in the world and then go back and keep their bases safe. These are allies of the United States. So just to see the kind of footprint, the kind of reach that starts here at Goodfellow. In fact, they were just talking about the addition of the Space Force just coming onto the base here too. So you've got a number of different branches of the United States military that are here, but also to see people from all around the world, many of our allied countries coming here to train, says a lot about this base.
If there are any prospects for BRAC, if the Republicans take back control.
It's absolutely 100% the people
closure.
and the diversity. You know, the diversity of different missions, you know, from firefighting to intelligence and everything in between. You know, BRAC, I represent from San Antonio to El Paso, and BRAC, I'm no newcomer to BRAC, base realignment and closure. So when I see this, when I see places like this, I go, we have to protect bases just like this if and when there is ever another BRAC. And the way you do that is you diversify yourself. And that's exactly what the takeaway for me was at Goodfellow Air Force Base is they're doing it all. And we got to make sure that they have all the resources they need to keep up that doing it all approach.
Would you say Goodfellow Air Force Base is a good model for other Air Force bases and other bases of that nature?
Absolutely. And I would go a step further. Not only is it a good model on base, it's a great model off base. And you just see that there with the mayor, the community. I mean, this is one. And you don't see that everywhere. It's not always that way where the base and the community are separate. I spent 20 years in the Navy. Sometimes it's that way. It's not that way in San Angelo, and I think that's very special. And I think it's a model for other places to build on.
In Del Rio. He's the congressman there.
That's all the time we have.
Thank y'all.
Thank you guys.